So, welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. We are recording in a freezing conservatory. Now, it's the start of the year, and many of you guys will have a New Year's resolution, plans for 2025, and looking to smash the year in a big way. And one of the things that happens is a lot of people fail in doing this. And it made me wonder, I thought, why is it that people get a result and some people don't? And for the majority of us, we've had some degree of success in our life, and there's other people that just seem to get success all the time. How do they do it? And these are the sorts of interesting questions that we try and find the answer to. And believe it or not, they're way easier to find than you would think. I recently listened to a podcast with Joe Rogan and a guy called Colin O'Brady, who had walked across the full length of Antarctica from point to point. And he is described being in flow state. And I've mentioned flow state a few times before now. And one of the things that you find with the flow state is that it gives you a sense of being able to do things that are traditionally quite difficult with a huge amount of ease. Now, wouldn't that be really good if you could achieve flow state to get results that you want in your life? Now, you don't need to go out and cross the length of Antarctica from point to point to go and achieve flow state. Believe it or not, there's actually a way to find out how to do that in everyday life. So much so, I read a book by a psychologist, and he is called Mikai Csikszentmihalyi, and he's Hungarian. He's a psychologist who wrote a book called Flow. And flow is the psychology of an optimal experience. And he had some interesting things, because when I was going through the book, I thought, these seem really, really obvious. And like most things, believe it or not, you've achieved success in your life. In fact, you've achieved incredible success in your life. Even if you're watching this now, you probably are looking for more success and more achievement and more outcome than most, which is an incredibly powerful tool, because what it is you're trying to improve your experience and you're trying to improve your results. So you probably have had some degree of success at something in some point in your life. And one of the things that will be frustrating you is that you don't get that all of the time. And I totally get that, because one of the things that we do is we have these little sort of moments of brilliance, and then we wonder why they disappear. And wouldn't it be cool if we could find a way to keep that? And Mikai obviously thought the same thing, because he went into a huge degree of study to figure out exactly what was going on, exactly how people had got in this flow state, and what happened to them when they got there. So let's dig into it. First of all, let's find out what flow is all about. So, flow, the book focuses on how individuals can create meaning and happiness in their life by achieving flow state. The state is characterized by intense focus, a sense of control, and merging in action and awareness. So the author emphasizes that the flow is not tied to external circumstances, which I thought was very interesting, but can actually be cultivated through internal practice and mindset. Now we're right on the topic, because we are Mount Mindset, and this is exactly what the type of learnings and teachings that we are looking for. How do you get the most out of this thing in here? So it says the ultimate goal is to shape life into an experience of continuous personal growth, satisfaction, and engagement. So that's a good summary, but what does that mean in real terms? Well, what it means is that you can achieve much more by working on your internal part of your experience, meaning what's within your mind. Now, there's lots of external things that happen, and you, for the most part, aren't in control of a lot of them. Some you are, but a lot of them you can't do anything about. But the one thing that you can control is what's going on in here. And Mikai alludes to that. So what he's saying is that if you want to get more of an experience and more of a purpose, the best place to start is not on the outside, but actually the inside. So let's start with what is flow. What is he describing when he means this? So flow is a state of optimal experience where people feel totally immersed in their activities. So if you're a parent, you've probably seen this, or if you've got a good memory, you might remember this as a child, where you probably started doing something. Maybe it was a colouring in book, a jigsaw puzzle, a project of some kind, and you started to get interested in it, and you started to put the pieces together, you started to put the puzzle pieces in place, and you started to wonder, and you got locked in to the point where nothing else seemed to matter. How many times have you done something, and when you feel that you're doing it, you just get lost in a sense of time? You know, there's times where, say, you're sitting in traffic and a minute goes by and it feels like an hour. How many times have you been locked in an activity, maybe that puzzle, that game, whatever it was that you were doing when you were young, and then before you knew it, hours and hours had been by and it felt like just a moment? Well, this is what happens when you get into flow, because flow has this feeling that you're totally and utterly locked into what you're doing. And what he explains here is flow state actually occurs when you do this particular balancing act. And it says the task balances between a skill, so whatever it is that you're doing, providing a sense of achievement without overwhelming stress. So that's pretty interesting. What does that mean? Well, what you're looking to do is go and take on something you're interested in. So something you find fun, something you're curious about, and you start doing it. And what you do is you balance making it challenging enough that you can feel engaged and you can feel that it's, you know, putting you to the test, but not too hard that it's out with your current skill set or your current experience level. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of point of view, where you're looking to make it hard but not too hard, and finding that sweet spot. Because this is what happens, particularly with New Year's resolutions, is a lot of people go out there, they then set this huge goal, and it's actually out with what they're capable of currently. They'll go out, maybe they'll say, I'm going to run a 10K, they stick their trainers on, they've not run for 6 months, a year, probably since the last time they set a New Year's resolution. They go out and they run, and they blow themselves apart because it's just too hard based on where they're at just now. So think of tasks not, or the objective of this, whatever you want to achieve, is not an on or an off. It's more a case of starting where you are and where your skills currently are, and working your way up. If anybody's done a training plan, they'll know exactly what this is like, because when you start training, you're not really that good at what you're training for, because then what would you need a training plan for if you're actually dialed in? The point is that you are actually working towards getting something that you can build on and you can improve on. And it's this sweet spot between making it hard enough that it's exciting and it has purpose, but not too hard that it makes it too difficult and you knock yourself out of love with what you're doing. And when you hit that sweet spot, flow state starts to begin. So he also lists some common feelings that you'll experience during flow. So the common feelings during flow is timelessness, which we alluded to earlier. Time just sort of flies by. Focus, where you are so enamored with what you're doing, you're so locked in that you are totally, utterly focused. And it's easy. It's so easy because you're like, yes, I know what to do, and this is great. It's the enjoyment. It's that enjoyment that's challenging enough, but you're getting progress, and it's that feedback that's really, really good, that you can get that feedback where you're getting somewhere. You know, it could be like, you know, if you're colouring in the picture, you get that piece done, you fill in that section, you're within all the lines, it looks good, and then you move on to the next piece. You're getting automatic feedback that you've got one piece complete. So it's this sort of relationship between not too hard, but hard enough, feedback and engaging enough, and then building on it. So he goes on to say the conditions to get into flow state. What are they? Now, this is right in my wheelhouse. Clear goals. The activity that you're doing must have a clear objective. So why are you doing it? What do you get out of doing this? Is it happiness? Is it enjoyment? Is it success? Is it progress? Is it growth? So these are all things that you want to get up to speed with, because lots of people actually use the wrong words to describe what it is that they want. It's a common thing. I deal with it all the time. So for instance, something that is pleasurable is not necessarily going to give you the level of enjoyment. Like, you can do lots of things that give you pleasure, but they're not necessarily going to give you that level of enjoyment, that feeling that you're actually getting real purpose from what you're doing. So when you enjoy something, you generally have a degree of satisfaction with it, where pleasure, you seem to just go through it for the sake of going through it. many people will understand exactly what that's like. So it's given these clear definitions that can make you even sharper and even shrewder on what it is that you're doing. So having a goal where you're like, I'm going to do this particular thing because it's going to give me this particular result. So an example might be, I'm going to lose £10 because I'm going to get into better shape, because I would like to feel better about the way I look, and I would like to get into these particular clothes because I'll enjoy how the progress of getting there, and I will feel good when I get there. So there's a clear definition of what you want, why you want it, what you'll achieve when you get there, and what you'll feel when you eventually hit that target. And that gives you an ability to say, well, I'm not going to lose £10 in my first gym session, but I can lose £10 if I start and then progress towards the goal. And I can enjoy that process. And what I'll do is, how good I am when I start to lose the £10, I'll not be as good then, because I'll be much better when I get to the point of losing the £10, because I've gradually built up the intensity so that I can feel like I'm growing. And that is when you start that process, you start to build flow. Many people say things like, the thing that's bandied about now is, I do it for my mental health. And what they're actually describing is they're describing that they're getting in flow. It's not about you're tragically going to fall off a cliff and your mental health is in perilous condition if you don't do it. It's just like you're saying, I actually enjoy what I'm doing because I get a sense of achievement and purpose and enjoyment from it. And that's the power of doing this thing. And they have a name for it called flow. So clear goals is number one. So get clearly defined on what you want, why you want it, what you'll get out of it when you achieve it, and what results to expect so that you can measure them. Number two, immediate feedback. I thought this one was quite interesting. Massively overlooked, typically, but this is quite interesting where Mikai goes into this. So he says, progress needs to be measurable, providing instant insights to your performance. So an easy one would be a jigsaw puzzle. You start the jigsaw puzzle, you've got all these pieces, you don't know where they go. The first thing you do is you look at the picture, you want a reference point of what it looks like. Now, we can use this as an analogy for anything that you want to do, because what you're doing is you're starting with something that isn't where it needs to be. It could be fitness, money, business, goals, your life, anything at all. And it's not where you want it to be. And you need to carry out an action to get to the end result being the completion of the puzzle. So what you would do with the jigsaw puzzle is you would take the pieces and put them out so you know what you're dealing with, and then you would look at the picture of what it is that you want to get to, and that's your clearly defined goal. You know what this thing should look like when you're done. But you don't go from looking at a pile of puzzle pieces to then having this thing complete. What you have is lots and lots of sequences of instant feedback and little wins. And you also get little mistakes. And that's the instant feedback that we're talking about. So what you do is you put the puzzle piece in, and you might want to start with finding where the corners are. You might want to build the edge. And you're getting feedback. Does it fit? Is this what it looks like? And you can measure, well, my goal is this picture, and here, let me start to build around it. You can do that with your goals: gym, training, fitness, business, money, relationships. You know where you want it to be, and you start to construct what it currently is and make it into what you want it to be. And that instant feedback, you will put in a puzzle piece and you go, yep, that doesn't work, that isn't for there, and you put it aside and try another one. Nope. And then you try that one, you go, yes. So you're getting that instant, immediate feedback. So the challenge, skill, balance is also an interesting one. So if you're doing something, you want it to be difficult enough to be engaging and to put you to the test and to help you grow your talent and ability, but not too difficult that it's going to blow you apart. It's like, so if you want to play tennis with someone, for instance, you want that player that you're playing against to be just slightly better than you. You don't want to play a pro, because the pro is just going to annihilate you. What you want is you want to find someone that's giving you enough of a test, but not too far away that you don't feel like you're miles and miles off the challenge. So you want to measure what you're doing in a way that you're getting a result that's pushing your intensity, but not making it extremely difficult. And that keeps the feedback loop going really well, because what you're doing is you're developing your skill, developing your skill, developing your skill. and then it starts to fit in. So that's why you want to have a challenge skill balance, so that you're getting the challenge and building the skills. So what are the characteristics of flow? The characteristics of flow, as in what do you get when you start to do this? Here's the things that you want to measure, so you can go, yeah, I know I'm starting to get here. Because flow, and all these words can sound good, but how do you recognize them? Well, here's your list. You get an intense concentration and focus. Now, just go back in your memory and remember a time when you were completely locked into something. You might be working on a project, you might have been typing on your computer, you might have been doing a jigsaw puzzle or colouring in picture, or maybe doing a sporting event, whatever it is that comes to mind. There will be a time in your life where you've had intense concentration. Wouldn't that be good if you could apply it to lots of things that you enjoy doing? And if you do, you're going to start to feel that flow, because you're going to get the focus locked in, know what you're doing, and things just start to work much better for you. Second thing, the second characteristic of flow is merging of actions and awareness. So that's losing self-consciousness. So you don't start to worry about what people think about you, because you're not really that concerned. You're too busy in the flow. Lots of people, when they start something new, they have a fear of what people think. So if they fail, they believe that, if people frown against them or say that they shouldn't have bothered, or they were, a fool for attempting it. And that's really the thing. They're self-conscious about failing. And you shouldn't be self-conscious about failing, because the beauty of growth is that it's not a straight line of success. You just don't go all the way to the top. It's a wavy line where, if you looked at it in a graph, you would have the up and the down and an up and the down and up and the down. And it's this management of volatility with a progression over a time horizon that gives you success. Meaning, if you do it long enough and you win more than you lose, you get better. That's really it. And if you're losing more than you win, then you need to listen to that feedback and adjust what you're doing. And then what happens is you start to adjust what you're doing, you win more and more and more and more. And that's really all you need to do. And it's not like you go and look at anything that you've done and go and see anything that you've done well. I bet that's got that formula in there. You can just start and apply this to everything. The third thing is a sense of control over actions and outcomes. So you can actually apply your outcome and your actions to move towards the outcome. So what it means is that you're taking deliberate steps to influence your actions that will influence your outcomes. And isn't that powerful? Imagine that now. Imagine you could do something where you're like, yes, I am going to start doing this action. I don't know, if I get into this flow, then I will start to get results, because you're starting this upward trajectory of positive outcomes. And you know that you're not going to be put off, you're not going to be deterred, because you have a clear goal. You have a clear idea of what you're going to get when you do it. That's going to put wind in your sails like nothing else. And when you do that, things start to improve. And if you can apply this to just about anything in life, there's no boundary to this. So the other thing that you get, the fourth thing, the characteristic of flow, is the distorted sense of time. So an idea of it, let's just take two extremes to give you an idea of what that's like. You ever been speaking to someone and they're boring and speak really slowly, and maybe their tone is a bit flat and monotone, and you think, this is going on forever. I need to get away. This guy's driving me nuts, and I just can't put up with it any longer. The conversation's maybe only been a few minutes, but it seems like it's dragging on forever. And another end of the scale, imagine if you ever had a time you have a conversation and you go, wow, man, hours have went by, because you just have this great connection, and you can talk and you can talk, and you just feel that it's powerful and energizing, and you just feel alert and focused. You're like, this is great. And everything you talk about leads on to something else, and it leads on to something else. And you just, before you know it, hours and hours have went by, and you feel like it's been minutes. Well, that's the difference between the two ends of the scale. And when you start to get in the flow, time distorts, meaning that you can do things for way longer than you thought, getting results way above and beyond what you thought was possible, because you're applying this energy over a long period of time, and it just feels like it's nothing. Imagine being able to do that. Imagine going into 2025 with your goals and time distorted, that your energy was applied over a period of time that felt like it was minutes, and you were doing it for hours. Just imagine how good that would feel. And I know that personally from going out and training and doing long duration exercises. And I always say that it's a bit hypnotic, it's a bit rhythmic. You try to find this rhythm, and you just let your mind take over and let the flow begin, and you just seem to get carried away. And you can do it for hours and hours and hours. The only thing catches out, you need to remember to eat and drink. You can be that sort of caught up that you need to keep on top of things. So such is the power of this sort of power of your mind, where you can distort time and get great results. And you can go for hours way beyond what you thought you could do. I think that's a power tool that you should apply and definitely get focused in for 2025. What I think I'll do, just had an idea, we're going to throw it right out here. If you want my list of what to do, then I want you to DM me, drop me a message, ping me an email, and I will send you a list of what we've discussed today. So a little checklist that you can make sure that you're doing this. Because if you like this idea, hit me up and we'll send it straight out. So if you're watching this as a short or a clip or a reel, or you're watching a full-length video and you want to get in flow and you want a checklist to make sure that you can do it, because I believe you can definitely do this. 100% you can. If you want to know how to get in here, hit me up. I'll send you an email. I'll send you a PDF and we'll get you in the game. The last characteristic, now this is really cool. You find such interesting things when you're doing this, and this is one of the things that I found was a new word. They say every day is a skill day. Excuse me. So the activity becomes autotelic, meaning it's rewarding in itself. Now, I didn't know what autotelic was, so let's just take a little aside, shall we? Autotelic is someone or something that has purpose in and not apart from itself, meaning that you don't need an external source of enjoyment. Doing this action is in itself enjoyment. And the word autotelic is derived from Greek. Auto meaning self, and telos meaning end or goal. So it means that you've got a self end or a self goal, meaning that there's a self end and outcome, or a self goal meaning something you want to achieve. And it says that this is exhibited in the sense of purpose and curiosity. I think that's why kids are a great example, because they're so curious about doing things. They go and start something and they're so curious. They have wonderment. And they're like, yeah, and I can do a little bit more and do a little bit more. They have no limits. And this is what happens as they get in this autotelic framework where it's like, yeah, I'm doing this and it feels good and I'm doing it more and it feels even better. And they get in this sort of nice childlike state of enjoyment and curiosity, which then derives purpose. And I think it's just so good to remind ourselves of what it's like to be like a child, because when we go and do the Mount Mindset climbs, one of the things that we see is the kids. For those of you that don't know, we do a Mount Mindset meetup each month. We take on a hill, we go up there, family, friends, dogs, newcomers, new, old, experienced and everything in between, and we take on a challenge where we go up a hill climb. And one of the greatest things that you see these young kids coming along, and they just are like, they have no limits. And it isn't that cool to remember what it was like, because we've all experienced that at some point in our life, taking on a task, taking on a little project, a little toy, learning a new trick, making paper aeroplanes, yo-yos, jigsaw puzzles, hangman, knots and crosses, all these little games that we just could play for hours and hours and hours because we had curiosity. And what about applying them to big goals, big dreams, and getting in that flow state, that autotelic state where in itself it has purpose and you don't need anything outside. I think it's super cool. So autotelic, new one on me. I've learned that today. So pretty interesting that you're even now, even myself, are learning cool things and being curious about them. So achieving flow. How to achieve flow. Achieving flow. Identify activities that intrinsically motivate and engage your skills. Now, like for instance, if you're going to take on something that you have no skill in, you can definitely do it as long as you're interested in it. And if you have a skill, you can then use it and become more interested in developing that skill. But what you don't want to do is have no skill and no interest in something, because you're going to get bored. It's going to be difficult to achieve flow. So stay away from those and find something you either have a skill or a curiosity in. Because just like when we were kids, there was lots of skills that we didn't have that we've grown to develop because we were curious. So you don't necessarily need to be skilled. You can just be curious, and then you can develop the skill. The other thing is if you find something that's suited to your skills, so maybe you're good with data, maybe you're good at focus, maybe you're good at multitasking, maybe you're good at seeing things from afar, not being necessarily, you can be a generalist, you don't need to know specialist things, but you can know how the big puzzle goes together, and you can be really good just managing a group of people or managing a project. So these are things that you want to apply so that you get really good results. And make sure that you find things that you have a skill in or you have curiosity in. And what I would do as a little exercise is I wouldn't go out the gates with, taking over, space travel or anything ridiculous. You might want to do that, but practice getting in the flow with something that practice something that you had a skill in or you've been curious about. Find something that's easy to get started in, and then intensify your skills so that you can then develop this. Remember, we're going to give you a checklist. So if you DM me, if you send me a DM, if you email me, if you put it in the comments, I'm going to make a PDF. I'm going to ping it out to you. So let me know if you want to get in the flow with the checklist. Now, achieving flow number 2, develop skills through deliberate practice and to match increasing challenge. So what does that mean? It means that you start with what you can manage, and then as you progressively get better, you increase the intensity. So like I'll give you an example. You say you have never run in your life and you want to start running. And this is, I can tell you from personal experience, I couldn't stand running. My physiology isn't designed to be a runner. I found it tricky, I found it challenging. So when I started running, I ran to the very first lamppost and then stopped and then aimed for the second lamppost and then aimed for the third lamppost. And then I went to the local park. And the local park, it was a 1.1 kilometre loop. So I would pick a distance that was longer each time and then walk around and then progressively get further and further around until I was starting to run round it once and then run around it twice, then run it 3 times to then being able to run round it as many times as I'd set out for that target. But the thing that I'm explaining here is that you want to set the intensity to what you can manage. Like, don't blow your doors off because you'll sicken yourself off and you'll just get put off. Find the intensity. You want it to be just enough to challenge you, but not too much to put you off. So when you practice, like, that's deliberate practice. So in that example was running. Increasing the intensity was picking a distance that you could make and then increasing it. So there's an example. There's your template. Find the thing that you're doing and then get an intensity you can manage, and then keep increasing the intensity so that you can get that feedback. Remember, the feedback is you want to see that you're developing, so you can see that development because you're getting further each time. The third thing is create structured environments that minimize distractions and engage focus. So we're in a world, I've tell you time and time again, social media wants to take your attention. The irony is you will be watching this in some form of social media. So it's not it's all bad, but you want to use it in a way that's going to be meaningful and doesn't distract you. So if you're going to use something, if you're going to start a new project, a new skill, and develop something, put yourself in an environment where you're not being distracted. So allow yourself a slot of time to do it. Turn off your notifications so that you're not getting interrupted. Where possible, don't take your phone. If you're just going somewhere locally, if you're just going around the park, you might not need your phone. So unless you want to listen to music, if you're not that fussed, then go just be in nature, or let people know that you're going to go and train so that they don't get in touch with you. I mean, one of the things that happens to myself is that, when I go out and train, I don't have my phone in front of me, so I can't see anything coming through. That's a great way of not being distracted, so you don't stop. So just create an environment where you can get focused in, no distractions, increase the intensity gradually, and watch yourself grow and build. Another way of achieving flow is to break down larger goals into manageable tasks with clear milestones. So this is like a great way of doing it. This is what we do on the visualization calls. We take a huge outcome, a huge goal, we break it down, so what do you want in 12 months? What would that look like? To get to that 12-month goal, what do you need to do today? What do you need to do in this week? What do you need to do in this month? What would that look like if you had the perfect 3 months? What would that look like if you had the perfect 6 months? What would that look like if you had the perfect 9 months? And then you have the big picture with the 12 months. And that makes things so much more manageable, because you go, well, rather than having this huge outcome that's wild and crazy, what I've got is I've got something that I can do today, and do something to move that slightly today, and move it a little bit more tomorrow, and move it a little bit more tomorrow, and by the end of the week I've got a good result. That feels good. You get the feedback. You're like, yeah, I'm getting some progress. Well, then what do you do the next week? You do the same again, and the same again, and the same again, and the same again. And then if you do it day on day, week on week, month on month, then by the end of the year, you've got a phenomenal result. So break it down. There's an old saying, how do you eat an elephant? And you eat an elephant, not in one go, by bit by bit. So approach your tasks like that. This 2025 big goal that you've got it's not something to do in one go. It's lots of little wins that add up. You're not going to win every day, but you can go and try and win every day. And if you are winning and you're showing up, you're going to get more results than you would do otherwise. So keep having a go. So here's an interesting one that came up in the book. It says that the role of flow and happiness. So what's the relationship between the flow state and how happy you feel? So Mikhail says that true happiness arises from structured activities that promote flow, which means essentially the more times you get into flow, the happier you feel. And what you do is you create a structure that puts you in flow more of the time, and that, by its very nature, makes you feel happier. Why does it make you feel happier? Because you're getting feedback that you're doing well, that you're getting growth, and the activity itself is enjoyable. And then you lose the self-consciousness that you care about what people think, because you're just so focused on enjoying the flow. And by that just releases any fear or negativity around if you succeed that day or not. And what happens is you keep showing up for yourself, you keep enjoying it. So happiness and flow and getting to it have a connected relationship. So if one of your goals is to feel better this year, then guess what? Go for flow. Passive activities like watching TV rarely induce flow, while active participation in hobbies, work, or creative endeavours can. Meaning that there was an example that he'd used in the book, which was, 100 years ago, everyone, if they took part in a physical activity, which meant that during the day they would go after particular things, they would take care of the work, and then they would come home and maybe take on a project. They might, put together some woodwork, or they might do something around the house, and nearly everyone played a musical instrument. And I thought it was quite interesting. I thought, well, why do people not play musical instruments? And what Mikhail had said was that Mikhail had said that people now we've mastered the art of passive entertainment, that people don't need to entertain themselves, because there's basically an unlimited source of people providing entertainment that and the viewers don't need to watch that. So you can listen to music, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to people that read books, you can watch people performing. You don't need to engage in these activities, where before people didn't have access to that, so they were keeping themselves entertained. And what that means now is that if you want to feel that sense of enjoyment, then you need to be active. You need to be active and not passive. So don't just sit there viewing all the information. Go and do something. Go and take part in something, because you'll fundamentally enjoy that much, much more. So lastly, the role of flow and happiness was the flow contributes to personal growth. So individuals stretch their abilities and discover new potentials. And what that means is that one of the main characteristics of people that are happy is that they're continually growing, they're continually improving, they're continually developing themselves, different skills, learning new stuff, and just being curious and engaging in that curiosity. They tend to be more active to make decisions in their life, and they tend to be more active in going out and experiencing new things that can then challenge their skills, improve them, and they can enjoy things. That's why people take part in sports. They have hobbies. They go out and set themselves bigger and bigger goals because they enjoy that sense of growth. So when you do things that are like that, you can engage in flow, and that flow then increases your abilities. When you increase those abilities, you feel much happier because you know that you're developing and growing, and that's really what life's about that experience and making yourself better all the time. So cultivating flow in daily life. Work. So what do you do how do you do this in your work life or your professional life? So is design work tasks to include challenges with clear feedback. Most of the time people are in a job or in a role that there isn't clear definitions of what they do. There's enough of a definition that they can get through it, but it's not known what's clearly expected of them to then break it up into goals. There was one of the examples that were in the book with Mihai, where he said that there was a cashier that before they used to scan barcodes. That's the automated process now. Cashiers would need to type in what it was and ring it up through a till. So it was a very, very boring job because it was just so repetitive, and they were trying to interview people that had what would be at the outset very boring jobs, but found a way to get that flow state. And they found cashiers that were much more engaging in what they were doing. There was a lady there that she was practicing piano in her spare time, and what she was actually doing was practicing the notes when she was ringing them up. She would imagine what notes would be produced by hitting these buttons, and she was creating a musical symphony in her mind. And when she was doing that, what would happen is that she found her job much more engaging because she was connecting it to something that she could then relate to a skill that would be useful to her. And on the outset, you'd be like, that seems pretty ingenious, but it was amazing that what actually happened was that she was more satisfied at what she was doing. She had much less mistakes. She had a much higher chance of getting a more demanding role, so she could move higher up in the company. And then it was also benefiting the skill that she was doing, which was, playing the piano, as a skill set. So it's these things where you connect what you do, what you would like to achieve, and then how you could structure something to get more out of yourself. Another thing is leisure. So choose hobbies or activities that require a skill and focus, such as sport, music, or art. What that means is that you generally start something unless you're, at elite level. Even the people that are elite level started somewhere that were way, they were nowhere near what they are today. And what they did was they found something that was engaging. They applied enough intensity that they could improve, but not too much intensity that they got put off. And they continued to develop till they got good. Whether it be an artist or a sports person or someone just taking part in a hobby, they found happiness in what they were doing, and not just happiness in the activity for the sake of reaching an end goal, but the activity of continually increasing their abilities. And that is where you will find flow. It will just come, and you will feel locked in, focused, and most of all, you will enjoy the process. So in relationships, they go on to say, engage in meaningful conversations and collaborative activities. So, in this day and age, we see lots of couples going out for dinner. Everyone's sitting on their phone because they're getting that engagement on their phone, which is, just a product of today's society. Is, well, why don't you take the time to have a chat with your, people you're in a relationship with? Start having conversations. Put aside time where you can do things together and then collaborate. Like, find a common interest and go out there and do it and have some fun. And it doesn't mean you need to lock away your phone, but it means that you can take a little time out to remember that we're social creatures, and we don't need to just be social creatures on social media. We can be real life social creatures. We enjoy the company of others. So do things that you enjoy with your kids, your partner, your wife, husband, whatever it is that your particular setup is, and go and enjoy that. And you will find that flow will just come and knock on your door and say, hey, we're enjoying this. These great conversations are good, and hours fly by and they feel like minutes. Mindset. Well, we're back in my wheelhouse. Practice mindfulness to stay present and focus on the task in hand. What that means is, like, if you're doing anything like any mind training techniques, is it's about shutting out the before, the after, the what you've got to do later on, what you've got to do next week. Did I, clean these shoes? Then what do I need to get ready to tomorrow? You just put everything aside and you lock in on what it is that you need to do. When you do that, something happens is that you then become more focused, and you can, instead of diverting your energy to 100 different things with 100 different thoughts, you can bring your energy and your focus into the thing that you're doing. And you will find that that by itself will increase your ability to do it well. And when you do it well, you'll be able to increase the intensity. When you increase the intensity, guess what happens? You got it. You end up in flow. So these are the reasons that you should be applying these now in your life to get a massive boost in 2025. And what the author suggests here is that it builds something called that autotelic personality. What that means is individuals with that personality are naturally inclined to seek flow, meaning that they'll do activities, they'll have a preference to seeking flow than not. They'll engage in active activities instead of passive. They'll be looking to increase their intensity to get more enjoyment. They will find themselves much more focused to then achieve growth, which then builds in happiness, which would then builds their ability to do more things because they've increased that ability. They also go on to say that traits include curiosity, persistence, and love for challenges. So just imagine that. What a trifecta. You're curious, so you're really fascinated by doing new things. You persist, so even what that means is even if you don't get it right first time, you're going to keep going until you improve your skills. And you have a love for challenges, so you get enjoyment from pushing yourself. Developing an autotelic personality involves learning and enjoying and finding purpose in all aspects of life. So life is a short trip. Make the most of it. And getting in flow is the key to making things happen. That is where the magic lies. That's why in here, this thing in here is a super tool, and you can use it. You've got the abilities. You've displayed it at different points in your life. So if you want to make changes and you're sick of having a life where you say, oh, well, people like me don't get this, and I just see myself as this type of person, why don't we just dispense that, put it aside, let's try getting into the flow state and see what happens. Because if you do this in 2025 towards your goals, your dreams, you're going to be blown away by how much you can increase your abilities and skills and feel good about doing it. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Mindset. We covered off the flow. It's been the deep dive. I've learned something new. There's some great tools that even I didn't know about. So this is the power of learning, adapting, and growing. And we're at the time of year where you're hot to trot. You've got some big plans. You've got some big goals. If you have them, get them out. If you haven't started, write them down. And if you want to do it in such a way, then here is the framework to do it. And if you need a checklist to help you out, remember, send me a DM, a message, put it in the comments. I'll make up a PDF. I'll ping it out. Ping me an email. I'll send it straight out. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I'm looking forward to getting back in the studio. Normal service to resume. More mindset training to come. And hope you guys had an amazing start to the year. You've enjoyed it and you're getting ready to go and to get fired up. And I'll look forward to hearing from you guys soon. But from me this week, that's a wrap.